Hi, I'm glad you stopped by. Can Satan read our thoughts? Can he read our minds? I would say that if this is true that Satan can read our minds, a lot of people are in a lot of trouble. Let's check this out. So here's the quote we're looking for in the earliest publication. Satan cannot read our thoughts, but he can see our actions. Hear our words, and from his long knowledge of human family, he can shape his temptations to take advantage of our weak points of character. So this was published 10 years after James White died, and this is the first time that this was said. Okay, that means I consider it to be part of the counterfeit, and we're going to take a look at why that is. Now, we'll state that nothing has been found to date in the original authentic spirit of prophecy that says Satan can read our thoughts. Now, that said, we're going to present our first witness, which is a judge, J.W. Edmonds. His testimony is found on pages 54 to 59 of the Signs of the Time by James White. This judge investigated the Rochester Knockings, and this is part of his findings. On page 58, the Honorable J.W. Edmonds states, "My most secret thoughts, those which I have never uttered to mortal man or woman, have been freely spoken as if I had uttered them. Purposes which I have privily entertained have been publicly revealed, and I have once and again been admonished that my very thought was known to and could be disclosed by the intelligence which was thus manifesting itself." So, you make your decision. I've made mine. I take this judge's testimony as fact, proving that Satan can read our thoughts and does, all too often, win the battle that we should be winning. The following passages testify to our danger, especially in these last days. Okay, let's get this. Our next witness comes from Spiritual Gifts, Volume 2, page 278, and is talking about the angel's care for the saints. And this is a warning of what happens when the saints choose their own way. So here it is. "But if individuals continue to retain their own will, choose their own course, and have their own way, the angels leave them in sadness. Then Satan comes in to control the will and bend the mind, and smiles in hellish triumph at his success." So this is Volume 2 of Spiritual Gifts. But think about this. Pay attention to what is presented here, because we're going to go into this testimony, which was a warning to Brother Cornell. And he was tempted to think himself sufficient to debate with anyone. But God is showing us what's happening here. So here's the testimony. Brother Cornell became lifted up and thought himself to enter the battle with anyone. And while he was so confident, he was in the very act shorn of his strength. Satan will manage to outgeneral them every time. That's because they go not into battle in the strength of God. And here it is again in the second combat. There was much, very much at stake. And he again felt a sufficiency in himself. Those who battle, this is the next paragraph here, those who battle for the truth and meet opposers of the truth should realize that they are not meeting merely a man, but that they are contending with Satan and his angels, who are determined that error and darkness should retain the field, and the truth be covered up with error. Very important information here, I'll tell you. These two last discussions did but little to advance the cause of God, and it would have been better had they not occurred. Brother Cornell did not engage in them with a spirit of self-abasement and with a firm reliance upon God. He was puffed up by the enemy and had a spirit of self-sufficiency and confidence, not becoming a humble servant of Jesus Christ. He had on his own armor, not the armor of God. And here's the key point here. But Satan had an object to gain here, to defeat the purpose of God, and he stepped in to take possession of your mind. And that's obviously what he did, because the angels left him, and instead of being in God, it says your self-sufficiency caused it to be almost an entire failure. And that's from the original testimony, number 13. And here we have the original testimony, number 30. Satan is ever seeking to impress and control the mind, and none of us are safe except we have a constant connection with God. And then from the 58 Great Controversy, he, or Satan, was constantly putting suggestions into the minds of God's people. Now this is real important, because does Satan read your thoughts? Why wouldn't he if he had access to your brain? Plus, we've already proven that the judge, when he went to the Rochester Knockings, proved and testified that his most secret thoughts were made public. It's amazing. Then number 16, testimonies number 16. If you encourage in the least the temptations of Satan, you place yourselves upon his battleground. And then the conflict will be long and sore before you obtain the victory and triumph in the name of Jesus, who has conquered him. Satan has great advantages. He possessed the wonderful intellect of an angel's powers, of which few form any just idea. I had to tell you, I spoke to a person at one point about the fact that the spirit of prophecy had been counterfeited. And they immediately opened some material that they had and pointed out, said, Satan cannot write like this. I'll tell you, not only can Satan write like that, he writes with power that only God has to save us from it. Think of all the wonderful books, so-called, that the world has produced, and worldlings love, and they're absorbed in this truth. Look at what was it? the it's the guy who it was a series of movies. I forget the name of it. Anyway, they produced books from it, and it was all based on witchcraft. And kids and parents alike, and a lot of people were just absorbed into all that. And I still cannot come up with the name of that. But anyway, few form any just idea of Satan's powers. Face it, he's got, and it says right here, it goes on, it says, he has lost none of his skill and shrewdness during his experience of nearly 6,000 years. And there is another place where it says that he has 100 times greater power to deceive now than when he deceived the angels in heaven. And there's another place where it says that the humans living in the last days are more susceptible to his devices. You got to think about that stuff. This is scary business. And now I need to produce those 2 quotes for you, huh? All right. We will do that in due time, and God bless your study.